Hi everyone, we are back with our sequel part 2 to our first video of Jupiter transit to Aquarius, and we are here with Libra to Pisces. Thanks for waiting everyone. Welcome Kṣaṇāti.
Namaste, Navjeet. It's good to be back here with the spiritual astrological community to discuss this transit of Jupiter in Aquarius and how it's going to be affecting Libra to Pisces Ascendant. I just wanted to mention that normally when we do transit videos, we start with Aries to Virgo, then go Libra to Pisces. But for all you Libra to Pisces, I promise for Nav and I's next transit video, we'll start with Libra and Pisces, and then we'll go Aries to Virgo, so you don't have to wait as long. But I know a lot of you are anticipating part 2 of this video, so I'm so excited.
Yes. Yeah, we can always alternate between part 1 and part 2, so reversal.
Definitely.
Right. All right, so we're going to get in with Libra Ascendant.
Excellent. That's wonderful. I just want to do a quick chant in honor of Jupiter as we discuss this Jupiter transit. So just going to do the traditional Jupiter Guru Deva mantra. Devanam cha risnam cha gurum kanchana shanibam buddhi bhutam triloksham tam namami brahaspatim om devinam cha risnam cha gurum kanchana shanibam buddhi bhutam triloksham tam namami brahaspatim om devinam cha risnam cha gurum kanchana shanibam Buddhi Bhutam Triloksham Tam Namami Brahaspatim Om Gram Grim Gram Sahaguru Deva Namaha Om Gram Grim Gram Sahaguru Deva Namaha Om Gram Grim Gram Sahaguru Deva Namaha Om Gram Grim Gram Saha Guru Deva Namaha. Hari Om, Om Namah Shivaya, Namaste. So welcome everyone. Let's dive right into it. I'm going to share my computer screen here and you'll see the Libra Ascendancy. So when we're looking at the Libra Ascendancy and the position of Jupiter in Aquarius, we have to understand that for Libra Ascendants, Jupiter is a functional malefic, so this can actually be a bit of a challenging transit. However, Jupiter does well in the Aquarius, even for the Libra Ascendancy. So I just wanted to mention that. Part of what the primary activation we see here is that the Jupiter in Aquarius sits in the 5th bhava, in the 5th house. Part of this energy has to do with education. This is a really important time for the Libra Ascendancy, the Tula Lagna, to be seeking education. And when Jupiter has to do with that, we're talking about spiritual education. What is the spiritual sadhana when it comes to your ascendancy? You know, so if you're a Tula Lagna out there, how is your spiritual practice? And then as the Jupiter enters in Aquarius, how can your consciousness evolve and your spiritual sadhana evolve? Maybe you're doing 5-10 minutes of yoga a day, time to increase it to 30 minutes or an hour. Maybe you're doing 5-10 minutes of reading of an ancient sacred text, the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita. Now let's increase it to 15, 30, 45 minutes. Also, this is the house of the Bhakti Yoga. And so you have a Bhakti planet in the Bhakti Yoga house. So we really want to evolve our mantra practice. We really want to evolve our chanting practice. This is a strong evolutionary energy associated with this transit for the Libra Ascendancy. Also, we're looking at the relationship with the guru, as the guru is in the house of education. So again, we might be understanding how we are having certain academic understanding of our guru's teaching, but now it's time to integrate it into our life, not to commit those prajna parads that we've discussed, those crime against our inner wisdom, but to really listen to it. This is also a house of romantic vibrations. So again, we're not necessarily looking at marriage as strongly here, but how about the setting up of a new relationship? That's a really important energy for the Tula Ascendancy, as the Libra Ascendants are typically individuals who like a romantic partnership and they like romantic energies in their lives. So how about inviting a high spiritual being that might manifest as that Jupiter energy in the 5th house into our lives? Maybe due to the pandemic, you've been kind of contained in your household, and now it's time to start dating. Time to start getting involved in going out to dinners and going out to movies, and maybe based on this 5th house position, going to a kirtan together. I can't think of any better first date than that. And we're also looking at some other positions here. The rulership of Sagittarius on the 3rd house, influenced by this transit, brings a certain upachaya, self-improvement, evolutionary energy. And also as the house of communication expression, as a Tula ascendancy, how can you grow to express yourself? Maybe you want to learn a new language. Maybe you want to work on public speaking, but the communication evolution is really important here. And then also we see the 6th house activation. This has to do with having a job and working. Now, the Jupiterian ascendancy, that doesn't mean all it has to do with, but it does mean that if you are unemployed before this transit hit, it's time to kind of manifest some work in this period. And it's not just your typical, part-time work. We're looking at the 6th house education. So if you're considering getting a full-time job, I highly encourage it based on this transit. Also, this 6th house position, it has to do with service. And Jupiter is a very selfless or humanitarian planet. And so we kind of want to encourage selfless or humanitarian energies during this period. How can we be of service to our community? How can we be of service to our fellow men and women on this planet? And then also, how can we benefit the planet? Jupiter has this kind of humanitarian vibration. So it's like, how can maybe we raise money for a charity that we care about? This can be a really helpful aspect of this transit as well. So these are just a few of the activations I wanted to mention, and just kind of highlighting education, romance, and then that bhakti, that spiritual practice, which I want each of the Libra ascendancies to kind of evolve their relationship with over the course of this period. So that's the Tula ascendancy, Libra. And now I'm going to pull up the Scorpio ascendancy. Does that sound good, Navjeet?
Yes, you covered everything. Yeah, main points. Thank you.
My pleasure. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the Scorpio positionship. This is pretty significant transit. Jupiter and Mars have that beneficial relationship with each other. I often say that for Jupiter and Mars, a guru, Jupiter, sitting under the Bodhi tree in deep meditation, but not really being of service to humanity to the extent they can. And Mars, the planet of action and energy, very much, full of vitality and getting things done. But is the things they're doing sattvic? Not always. There's a rajasic and tamasic energy there. So the combination of Jupiter and Mars is really beneficial. I like Parahamsa Yogananda as a beautiful manifestation of these karmas in his 8th house. So as we're looking at the Scorpio ascendancy, obviously you see Ketu shining right there. So you have to also understand that there's that Ketu transit happening for the majority of this Jupiter Aquarius transit. So there's a lot of transformation going on. The question is are we transforming in a good direction? Or are we transforming in a direction of falling back into old habits and patterns, maybe some karmas that we thought we broke a cycle of, but now they're back into our lives again. So we really have to look at that as the Scorpio ascendancy. The primary activation here is on the 4th house. And so this is a really good time to, if you're living in a home and you're already comfortable and stationary there, how can you make that home a manifestation of your spiritual path? The body is the temple, the home is the temple. And for this transit of Jupiter and Aquarius hitting the house for the Scorpio ascendancy, you really want to turn that home into a temple. You kind of want to remove the things in that home that aren't supporting your highest vibration. So if there's bottles of alcohol, bottles of cigarettes, you kind of want to throw those away. Doesn't mean even if you like to drink on occasion, but don't have it in your house. Maybe you're trying to eat less meat, but you eat meat out of the home. That's common, right? Keep the meat out of the house. Keep the alcohol out of the house. Keep the things that are your temptations and your weaknesses out of the house, because we do want to turn that home into a manifestation of your highest potential. Also, this is a house where if you don't have a home, or if you're living in a temporary place and the lease is kind of ending, or if you're considering selling a home, this is a really good opportunity to do that, because maybe the home itself is not a manifestation of who you are. And so finding the proper home for yourself is going to be absolutely essential. And this is a geographic position too. So you might want to actually consider your geographic location. Is the home that we're living in good? If not, maybe we want to seek another home, but maybe the city or state or country that we're living in is not in total alignment with what we're seeking. And we can do astrocartography, geographical based analysis to understand this a little bit better. But due to the pandemic, we might have been stuck in a place that we don't really want to be stuck in. And now that this Jupiter and Aquarius transit energy is beginning, and the Capricorn energy is ending, it's an opportunity to travel and maybe find a new location for your home. This also has to do with the relationship to your emotions, opening up your heart, opening up your relationship to your family members. If your mother is alive or the female members of the family, really focus on improving your karma with them, trying to be in service to them with that selfless humanitarian energy associated with Jupiter. Also, I want to look at the activation on the 5th house. We just saw the 5th house activation for the Libra ascendancy, but it's Pisces there. So it's really about focusing on that activation of your higher power. What is your higher power? You know, what do you call God? God is just a 3-letter word. Maybe you call God Shiva. Maybe you call God Christ. Maybe you call God the Navagrahas, the planets. Or maybe God is just something that we don't really know, but we know there is a power or energy greater than ourselves. Whatever it is, part of this transit by the activation of Pisces on the 5th house is to have faith in that higher power. That means that when we kind of let ourselves go, kind of fall back into the universe, that we have faith that the universe is going to catch us, that the God or higher power of our understanding is really going to be there for us. You know, faith is not a belief. Faith is a practice. I always like to say that. Faith is a practice. It's easy to say that I believe, but how about trusting in the universe and falling back in the process and really letting go? That's highly inclined for the Scorpio ascendancy during this period. And just to be fair to the Scorpio ascendants, they do like to control situations and outcomes. So really letting go of your control of the situation, because, you know, there's the serenity. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's a real Western mantra that I highly encourage for the Scorpio ascendancy over the course of this period. We're also looking for an activation on the 2nd house from the Sagittarius influence on the 2nd bhava. This is an arta aim of life activation here. And so that might mean that this is a time for investment. This is a time for saving money. This is also a time for, if we've been kind of like spending a lot of money, it is a time to save and to be able to start to accumulate funds in your savings account. Add the Jupiterian energy to that. Jupiter can have to do with investing in the stock market, right? This is a really big time to invest in cryptocurrencies right now. So please consider that as a good investment, Ethereum being my favorite. So we do want to really consider this kind of potential for investing and using our wisdom and our knowledge and our education for beneficial investments. So I do highly encourage us to consider, are we saving money or are we spending money? And Jupiter's influence on this house really wants to use our intelligence in order to be able to save money so that we can be of greater service. So there is a selfless or humanitarian energy, which is highly encouraged, but our service abilities are limited when we don't have money to kind of give to the proper charities or humanitarian resources. So I just wanted to highlight some of those aspects for the Scorpio ascendancy. And I hope that's helpful for all you Scorpio ascendants out there, like you, Navjeet.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Kṣaṇāti, because you mentioned about crypto, and it's just great for my ascendant because I started to get into crypto and just studying. All of a sudden, I've never been into like trading or stocks at all. So just to like learn, even watching videos and stuff out of nowhere has become my interest these days.
Yeah. I mean, same things happen to me, you know, like
Right?
the transit of Jupiter on my Rahu. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to put all of my money into Ethereum. So we'll see how that turns out. Fingers crossed. So, so the next transit we're going to look at is the Danus, the Sagittarius ascendancy, and this is actually ruled by Jupiter. So it's extremely functionally benefic over the course of this transit. So when you're looking at the primary activation, it's here in the 3rd house. We mentioned the 3rd house activation for the Tula Lugna, the Libra ascendancy. This activation is a little more intense because we're actually trying to expand our consciousness, which means we're kind of like perceiving things and looking at things through a new paradigm or perspective, which is really, really helpful, especially for the Sagittarius ascendancy, who kind of wants to evolve and grow spiritually throughout their lifetime. But it's one thing to have a message, and it's another thing to be able to express that. And there's a huge amount of potential here for you to kind of like evolve and transform the consciousness of others if you're a Sagittarius ascendancy. And there's this element for the Sagittarius Dharma, which is about justice, which is about freedom, fairness, and equality. And not everyone is, this is common sense for a lot of us, that all people are equal, regardless of race, religion, lack of religion, financial income. All people are created equal. And yet there are still some people in this world who kind of have stereotypes and biases. And so part of the karma of the Sagittarius ascendancy is to kind of fight these spiritual battles to help evolve the consciousness of others. But you only want to fight battles that you can win. As this transit kind of hits, you have more of an ability to influence the closed-minded people. People's consciousnesses are evolving. We've all been trapped inside of our houses and in our cities during this pandemic. We are desiring freedom. So everyone has that popcorn kernel inside of them that's kind of waiting to be cooked, and so the popcorn can pop. And so I encourage you to help other people popcorns pops here. The next kind of transit I like to activate here is that fourth house activation of Pisces. We talked about making the home a temple. This is very true for the Sagittarius Danus ascendancy here. And so one of the things that we kind of feel is that intuitive connection associated with the Pisces, and that Pisces activation on the fourth house. It means you're going to have an intuition, and you might not have had the intuition in terms of, is this home right for me? Is this geographic location? Are the people I'm living with the right people for me to be living with? Maybe that, from that Capricorn transit of Jupiter, there have been some trouble in that area. So now it's time to actually make that shift. So really trust your intuition in terms of your geographic location right now, and follow that gut instinct. We're also looking at an ascendancy transit. So part of that is that Jupiter is a Kapha planet. There's a Pitta element, especially for the Sagittarius, because it's a fire sign, but there's still that Jupiterian element, So, part of that influence is the Kapha coming into your life. That can bring warmth and love and kindness and sweetness. And it can also bring sweet foods and sweet cravings. So you really do want to be able to curb your kind of Kapha-genic foods right now. Not too much rice, not too much carbohydrates, not too much sugars. And just to know that you do have this disposition to growing right now, and not just vertically, but horizontally. And so due to that influence, maybe exercise is a really way to get good that Pitta, that Rajasic energy moving in a healthy way, so that when you do grow, you bulk up and become really muscular over the course of this period. So I do encourage exercise, especially for the Sagittarius ascendancy, as that kind of Kapha influence is coming into your life. So I just wanted to highlight those points for the Sagittarius ascendancy. And now let's discuss Capricorn.
On that note, I do want to say that with my new nutrition channel on YouTube, me and Kṣaṇāti, we're planning to be doing videos on medical astrology. So that would be really interesting.
Nav, I'm so excited to do that with you and to get this Ayurvedic focus on Jyotish. I don't believe there's enough astrologers out there focusing on medical Jyotish. And when I was studying with my Jyotish guru, Mahadev Levine out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, he was looking at my chart. He says, you're definitely going to do this karmic stuff, but at some point you're going to kind of be invited to focus on medical astrology. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity with you.
Yes, me too. I would love to also learn, and and our viewers to also make a connection between that, right? Their chart and medicine together. That would be good.
100%. When we get to that, just so everyone can get excited, we're going to go over the doshic influence and then the doshic vulnerability. So what kind of issues are you going to have as each ascendancy? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. What kind of diseases show up? Are you vulnerable to obesity, diabetes, dementia? And then also we're going to provide medical remedies based on the Jyotish chart, Ayurvedic herbs based on your Jyotish chart, certain mantras, certain yantras, and things that we can do from an Ayurvedic perspective, maybe certain panchakarma practices that are going to be really beneficial for each chart. And we'll do some case studies too, which will be fun now.
Yeah, thank you.
So next, we're going to take a look at the Capricorn ascendancy. And very recently, you know, the Jupiter has been transiting in that debilitated position on your ascendancy. And Saturn is still there, but that combination of Saturn and Jupiter has probably been really difficult for the Capricorn ascendancy. Have a lot of compassion there. And so I think you got a lot to look forward to here as the Jupiter and Aquarius transit. One of the things that we're seeing is the second house activation, which is Artha Baba, financial wealth. We talked about saving. Saving is absolutely essential here. This also might be one of the things where we talked about investing. Is a great activation for investing. But because of the Capricorn ascendancy has this affinity for career, I highly encourage you to kind of get back to focusing on your career. Maybe the pandemic has kind of took your career for a storm and you haven't been able to work full time. Maybe the location of your business has been closed. If you're wondering whether to open it back up and start working full time. This activation of Jupiter on your second house, it really is encouraging that kind of activation. And then also we're looking at the second house and its influence on family. You know, time to start focusing and paying attention to your family again, being in service to your family, doing things for your family and focusing on the family. That balance of work and family, it's absolutely essential for the Capricorn ascendancy, and you really get the opportunity during this transit. We're also looking for that third house activation because of Pisces. This has to do with the evolution of your speech, but also an upachaya self-improvement evolutionary energy. One of the things that I like talking about with Jupiter is this vulnerability to prajna parad. That means crimes against wisdom. Crimes against wisdom is something that we all kind of struggle with because we're all human beings here. But because the Pisces is influencing that third house, the intuition is absolutely essential. You know, as the Capricorn ascendancy, what you should and shouldn't be doing, and get ready for karmic repercussions or consequences when you go against this. If you know you shouldn't be drinking, you're going to get a horrible hangover. If you know you shouldn't be smoking, you're probably going to get a lung infection. So there is this kind of karmic influence over the course of this period. Really listen to your intuitive wisdom. We're also seeing an activation of the 12th house from Sagittarius. This has to do with a few different things. One is foreign relocation. So for the Capricorn ascendancy, career is really important. And this activation of the ruler of the 12th being in the second, this is really important because it's possible that for your financial success, you have to do some international business. International affairs is highly encouraged here. And also possibly foreign relocation is really starting to set up as a possibility here. So really look at your opportunities internationally, and astrocartography became a great tool to be able to do this. Also, the 12th bhava is moksha. And moksha, you know, it sounds good for a spiritual individual, but it has a lot of pain associated with it because it's loss, surrender, and letting go. Usually we know that we need to let go of things. However, it's not an easy thing to do. This will encourage you and kind of force you from a karmic perspective to let go of the things that are no longer serving you. Maybe we actually have to let go of some savings from this activation of the rule of the 12th being in the second in order to save more money and make more money. So again, we have to make certain sacrifices or compromises based on the activation of this 12th house. So the question is, as a Capricorn ascendancy, what are you sacrificing or compromising in order to gain something greater, in order to be of service in a much deeper way? So I hope that's helpful for the Capricorn ascendancy.
Wonderful.
Now my favorite, just kidding, but I'm an Aquarius ascendant. So Aquarius ascendancy, thank God, thank the Lord, thank Lord Shiva, right? So you're an Aquarius ascendant, and now Jupiter is hitting your ascendancy. So this is really an awesome transit. I got Rahu there, so it's very beneficial and appealing to my Rahu. It helps me kind of align to my higher self. But what doesn't matter if you got Rahu there or not, Jupiter is the Guru Deva. We all have our animalistic self, which is, you know, full of base desires. You know what I mean? Our animalistic tendencies, our weaknesses, and our flaws. We have our human self as we try to kind of work on some of these things. And then we have our guru self, our divine self. The Jupiter ascendancy transit, this kind of helps us become our higher self. Not that we can be perfect, but we can strive for it, and we can really reduce a lot of our flaws, weaknesses, and bad habits and patterns over the course of this transit. Now, as I mentioned, Jupiter has this kapha disposition. So just since this transit started, I've gained like 15 pounds. But, you know, I'm working on playing baseball again, which is, you know, my favorite form of exercise. So that's helping out. I highly encourage play during this period. You know what I mean? This is going to be very beneficial. It's going to be a really good thing to help you kind of reduce those kaphagenic energies and eat lots of bitter and pungent foods. That means bitter and spicy. This can be very helpful and balancing to the Aquarius ascendancy that's having Jupiter hit that right now. But there is this kind of like evolution to your highest self over the course of this period. And so you really want to align to that vibration. We're also seeing an activation on the second house. Investments, saving money, putting money towards potential future investments is a really good activation. That makes sense why I've been doing what I've been doing, trying to get involved in the crypto market. So there is this kind of activation on the second house right now. This has to do with family too. We have certain family members, however, that we have more of a soul spiritual connection with them than others. When we're with them, our soul is in total peace. Focus on that relationship, build that relationship, and really focusing on my relationship with my parents and my sister right now. It's been absolutely fantastic to deepen my relationship with them. We've been going to baseball games, going out to dinners, going to the movies, and it's just been really nice to be able to focus on this kind of relationship. So which family members kind of resonate with you? And I'm kind of giving you a little bit of break when it comes to the family members with that Pisces that you don't necessarily, they don't make you feel good. You don't have to go out of your way to spend time with them. Really focus on the family members that are resonating with you spiritually right now. Also, the activation of the 11th house. This is one of the best transits for the Aquarius ascendancy for friendship. I've made so many good friends since this transit started that I never had before in my life. I've just met them recently, you know, just as this transit was kind of starting. And I can tell they're going to be best friends for the rest of my life. So this is an Jupiter influence of friends, friends that are moral, friends that are ethical, friends that are pure. All my friends that I've made during this period are totally on this path of purity and spiritual evolution. You know, they eat healthy, they don't drink, they don't smoke. These are the kind of friends that I want to have in my life, you know? So it is this really strong activation. And then also this has to do with gains and profits. This is a really strong activation with the second house and the 11th house activated as this really strong transit for a period of profits during this period. So again, investments are highly encouraged during this period. Also, it's not just those kind of material gains, but also spiritual gains. How can I reach this next level of growth in my spiritual progress? It's a really important question to ask for the Aquarius ascendancy. I would spend more time on it because it's mine, but that's not fair. So again, this is a really nice transit. Congratulations, Jupiter's in your ascendancy. So last but never least, and it will not be last next time, we'll start with the Pisces ascendant and we'll go down to Virgo in the first video. So double reverse, that'll be fun. So for the Pisces ascendancy, again, your chart is ruled by Jupiter. So we're looking at a great functional benefic here. Part of that energy of that activation of Pisces in your ascendancy, we talked about having faith. Faith is a process, you know what I mean? Faith is an action, not a belief. They say that you believe and have faith. No, you act and have faith. Faith is an action. Show your trust in God. Show your trust in the universe. So this also has to do with opening up your intuitive abilities as the Pisces ascendancy. What are the things that help your intuition grow? Is it spiritual practices? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Is it chanting? Is it Ayurvedic herbs? This is going to be a really beneficial thing to understand. What blocks your intuition? Is it hanging out with certain people who don't understand you? Is it not staying focused on your spiritual practice? You know, is it eating certain foods that I know are not good for me? You kind of want to evolve past this right now. The primary activation, though, is a little bit intense for the Pisces ascendancy because you're looking at the 12th house. The 12th house really suggests that foreign travel and potentially foreign relocation is really, really beneficial over the course of this period. I really encourage you, before Jupiter goes into Pisces and hits your ascendant, which you can be very excited about, you should really start to travel and experience cultures across the globe. This is what's going to satisfy you and help your spiritual evolution and help your education and help you to kind of feel like you're on your proper spiritual path. And by the moksha activation on the 12th house, you really want to use your wisdom and, as a Pisces, that intuition to let go of the things that are no longer serving you. This can also have to do with the relationships in our life. If we're in a romantic relationship, but it's out of convenience, time to let it go. If we have a friendship, but it's out of convenience, time to let it go. Only to really hold on to those things that are completely serving your guru self, that divine self manifestation that we talked about. And then we also really like the 10th house activation, career, life purpose, artha-bhava, time to really start focusing on your career and allowing that to evolve. If you have a certain position and you have the potential to get a raise, you have a potential to get a promotion, it's most likely going to happen over the course of this period. But you can't be, the ruler of the 10th is in the 12th. So you do not want to be focused on that or attached to it. You want to let go of it, and that's when it'll come to you. But that you have to do what you need to do to keep your side of the street clean. Do not make any mistakes. Focus on your career and the moral and ethical energy associated with the career. If there's an opportunity to make a little bit of extra money, but at a moral or ethical expense, that's not going to help you grow. In the long run, you'll reach much more material success by doing the most moral and ethical thing here. But there's a lot of activation as it relates to career and success in the career right now for the Pisces ascendancy. So it was really exciting to discuss this with all of you, to discuss Virgo Libra through Pisces ascendancy and the Jupiter and Aquarius transit. Thank you so much, Navjeet ji, and I can't wait for our next transit video as well.
Thank you so much for your time, Kṣaṇāti, and thank you everyone for waiting for part 2. And like we said, we'll be doing the part 2 first next time. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.
Hari Om, Om Namah Shivaya.